Now, some MPs fear a new treaty designed to increase the World Health Organisation's powers could enable it to enforce border closures and vaccine passports.
6 Conservative MPs, that's including myself, are calling
And
me, that's 2 of us here, are calling for a Commons vote on the draft treaty and regulations before they are signed, making sure that Parliament does stay sovereign.
Joining us to discuss this is Conservative MP Sir Christopher Chope, OBE, and Senior Clinical Lecturer at University of Exeter Medical School, Dr Bharat Pankhania. Chris Chope, if we can start with you first, what are specifically your concerns about this?
My principal concern is that there is a move afoot within the WHO to transform it from being an advisory body to one which is able to compel members to behave in a particular way. And that will completely change the character of the organisation. And the organisation itself has come under a lot of scrutiny recently because it seems as though it's controlled essentially by China. China nominated the chief executive, the director general, and it's also funded not just by independent countries, but also by large foundations, particularly the Bill Gates Foundation. So, question mark, is it independent? We won't need to worry about that as long as it hasn't got the powers to compel us as a sovereign nation to do things we don't want to do.
Now, in the House of Commons on Monday the 17th of April, the Government Minister Anne-Marie Trevelyan said, and I'm quoting what she said, "The speculation that somehow the instrument will undermine UK sovereignty and give the World Health Organisation powers over national public health measures is simply not the case." Does that reassure you? Do you not believe her when she says that?
Well, that may not have been the case in April, but we know that since then there have been something like 300 amendments put forward to achieve exactly that objective of giving the WHO control. And our minister said, I think in response to an article in today's newspaper, that he would fight against that. But there hasn't been any evidence that the UK government has been fighting against it. And indeed, at the same time as saying he's fighting against it, the minister's saying he's in favour of the pandemic treaty. And that's why I very much go along with the idea that there should be more public and parliamentary scrutiny of what's happening.
Dr Pankhania, what is it about the World Health Organisation's record that should give us confidence that we want to give them more powers and more controls over what happens in our country?
Let me rephrase it for you, if you may. We've only got one organisation that leads on maintaining the planetary health. And the WHO is the only body we have from the United Nations. And if you wish to recreate a WHO, it may be a lot worse than what we've already got. What we have to do and what we have to look at is this. When a pandemic of this ilk, like we've just had, strikes, we've got to be prepared, and we've got to be prepared internationally. We've had international health regulations, care of the WHO. However, those international health regulations were never properly followed. And what is proposed is a better cooperation between member states so that we respond better, but not only respond better, but we support each other. So these things are really, really important to save lives globally. We saw how Africa was
Dr. Bharat, if we can just come in here. The things like international cooperation, things about coordination, things about transparency, nobody is questioning that WHO.
Sure.
What they're talking about is this now being binding and compelling, going from advisory to actually being the authoritative body. Do you not have some concerns with that, particularly as the WHO oscillated somewhat in their views?
No, I do not have those concerns because member states remain sovereign. What I am saying is member states alone cannot fight pandemics on their own. And the WHO is nowhere near saying that you will do the following or else. It is not saying that. So I would like to take this opportunity to reassure viewers that this is not a case of you will be compelled to do the following. It is more a case of you will, you must. cooperate and work together with us.
But Dr. Panya, Article 19 of the draft treaty in paragraphs 1C and D would require each World Health Organization member state to commit at least 5% of its national health budget, plus an unspecified as yet percentage of GDP, to pandemic preparedness and response. Now, when we were trying to get our waiting list down and all the rest of it in the NHS, I mean, surely that's crackers to require us to spend that amount of money. So that this thing is something that we're going to have to do.
Yeah, compelling, not requesting.
I'm really pleased.
Compelling.
Let me answer this because it's really, really important. Really, one, we are not well unless all of us are well. And if we do not look after the health economy locally, nationally, and internationally, we are all poor as a result. What we need is member states to contribute properly and as much as they can with their GDPs proportionately. It is really important that we contribute to prevention, because if we contribute to preventative illnesses, we will all be healthier. So we cannot say that is Africa's problem, Africa sorts it out, because Africa's problem becomes our problem very quickly. Take HIV, etc. So what I'm saying is these items like 5% or whatever, that's up for negotiation. But the point is, yes, the richer nations ought to contribute, and prevention is a lot,
Can I ask Chris Chope now, do you feel reassured by what Dr. Bharat has to say there?
No, I don't, I'm afraid, because essentially we've got a situation where the WHO has already been found wanting because, for example, China, were they fully cooperating in this recent pandemic? How can we be sure that they will cooperate in the future? We've got a voluntary arrangement which hasn't been working, and to try and make that into a compulsory one and require individual countries to decide, perhaps against their better judgment, something that's been decided by the WHO, which is an unelected body. And just take the example of what happened at the beginning of the pandemic. The WHO was against the idea of vaccine passports and lockdown.
So Christopher
and then within about 6 months, suddenly, without any change of the evidence, they changed their view. How did that come about?
So Christopher Chope, Dr. Bharat Pankhania, thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning.